Of course, my background as a lawyer. Um, After I graduated from law school, like any law school student, was went into litigation, went into corporate law, and then found myself sitting at my desk very unsure.
Hi guys. So today we have Mrs. Sanah with us. It's glad to have you, ma'am. So, ma'am, we'll start with the first question. Your work sites at the intersection of law, child protection, and education. What key experiences shaped your commitment to building safer and more informed schools in India?
Thank you for having me. What helped me shape my niche area within law and education is, of course, my background as a lawyer. Um, After I graduated from law school, like any law school student, went into litigation, went into corporate law, and then found myself sitting at my desk very unsure about why am I drafting these multiple contracts. And then I got into education and I was driven towards policy and advocacy. Within that, I found a lot of love for child rights and child safety. And that's how I managed to merge both my fields. And I realized very shortly that schools, though they know a little bit about the law, they may have the committees, but they don't really know what it means to be a safe school. And I realized that they need help, they need hand holding, and schools suddenly needed lawyers when that was unheard of. So slowly, we started working with a couple of schools and we started helping them draft policies, formation of the committees, getting into audits, because child safeguarding, which is the broader terminology, is is changing your entire vision and mission. It's not just have a committee or have a policy. You need to train your staff, you need to sensitize your kids, you need to talk to your parents, you need to change your systems and processes. So when we started working with schools, we realized that this is a void, this is a need, and it's an area that needs to be worked upon. And that's how we've gotten so far. We've managed to train multiple schools across the country, and I'm happy to say we've sensitized a lot of kids, a lot of parents, and trained many teachers.
Thank you, ma'am. That was great to hear. Ma'am, as a legal advisor and child protection specialist, what are the most urgent gaps you see in school safety systems? And what actionable reforms should schools adopt immediately to fulfill them?
So first and foremost, teacher training. The teacher is your first responder. There is data to show that children report much more in a school than they do at home. Why? At home, there is fear of being labeled, there's fear of that they may not be saying the truth, there's fear of your parents not believing you, there's fear of that parent reaction.
Yes.
So, children fear to speak up at home. Whereas in school, they feel more comfortable with their teachers, they may feel more comfortable with their counselors. So schools are the first responders to any form of abuse. So, for that, our teachers need to be thoroughly trained. They need to be trained in trauma response. How do you respond if a child discloses about abuse? One, or two, how do you identify abuse? Because many times kids may not tell you. They don't know how, they don't have the vocabulary, the words to express what they've been through. So, you as a teacher, as an educator, need to be trained on how to identify behavioral changes. So, teacher training is a must. Having proper reporting protocols. We don't want to get lost in a web of who do I go to, who do I not go to, how do I report, should I report to my supervisor, in charge, principal. But we don't want to get into all that, because that then we'll lose the essence of what we're doing. So, your reporting mechanism has to be very clear. And third, and I think the most important, is you know really supporting that child through the process. Reporting abuse is so traumatic for that child, having to relive what has happened for him or her. So really being that support system at every step from reporting to the police coming in, to the questioning, investigation, everything. So I think where we lack or the gap that's missing is proper training, reporting, and providing a very complete support system to that child.
That was great to hear, ma'am. Ma'am, do you think that child abuse was more 5 years ago as well, but was not reported, or is it that it has increased over the time and people have learned how to teach their children how to report about it, or is it the schools which are helping them acknowledge that child abuse is something that parents mostly don't know about?
So, if we go back in time, the first time that child rights was recognized was all the way back in 1999 when the United Nations came out with the Convention on the Rights of the Child. So it's a fairly old concept where a child was for the first time recognized as a autonomous human being and not just an extension of a parent. And for the very first time in that convention, we recognize that children have rights to be protected against discrimination, rights for participation, rights to survival, right to development, education, all the rights. Now let's fast forward. India only established a law on child protection in 2012. So that's when we recognized that it's not that abuse wasn't happening before the POCSO Act came out, it was, but it was being dealt with by the general criminal laws of the country. At that time, the Indian Penal Code. But there was a need to provide a separate legislation dedicated to protecting children. So that's when we came out with POCSO. Now, POCSO in itself deals with all offenses that are there or that are there against children. Then we also have the Juvenile Justice Act. So there was a space, a void within our legislation where we needed specific laws for children. And that's how the rights of the child got recognized. And I think that it's so important to be able to train our teachers, our staff, and sensitize our students on these laws.
Surely, ma'am, I agree. Ma'am, what message would you give to educators or the parents about creating a culture of protection, accountability, and trust in schools today?
So, like I said, parent sensitization is really important. You asked that is all of this? Why are we suddenly talking about child protection now? Cases were happening even back then. They were just not being reported. They were not. We didn't have the special courts to deal with children. But now, when our systems are in place, I'm not saying our systems are perfect. They're far from perfect. But at least we have those systems, and they must be used. So even for parents to we need to educate our parents that there's no taboo of fear behind reporting. There is no this, we don't have to keep it a secret. There is no tarnishing of the name of the family. We have to focus on welfare of the child. What does the child require? We need to support that child and give that child a voice and power to speak up. So the best thing that a parent can do today is get with the times, understand what are the different sort of crimes that are happening against children, educate themselves. One of the biggest issues we're facing today is cybersecurity, the digital safety aspect. Cyber grooming, cyber bullying are some of the biggest crimes that we're facing today against children. So I think as a parent body, we need to start educating ourselves. We need to start understanding our children. We need to really start listening to our children. Everything is not out of attention or make believe. Children, if we're empowering them to have a voice, as parents, we need to start hearing that voice.
Surely, ma'am. Ma'am, as you said that cyberbullying is the biggest issue. So, ma'am, do you think that before digitalization or before online platforms were introduced in the school, was the learning better or has it gone better after it, but it has few flaws of it also that concerns children's security?
See, I think we weren't left with much of a choice because of COVID. We had to get online. We were thrown into an unknown area, an unknown terrain. where suddenly kids were at home, parents were at home, couldn't venture out, but learning can't stop. So we had to really accommodate and adapt ourselves to those times. So we were sort of forced, we had no choice but to go online. And that's where this entire digital learning, online learning went into a massive boom. So you go online, you log into your class, then small things here and there, morphing of pictures, children sharing inappropriate messages online, making fun of other kids, a little bit of teacher harassment also, to a certain extent we have seen online bullying. All those issues started creeping up. So the online world was always there. Dangers and threats in the online world were always there. But of course, with so much learning happening online and kids being online a lot more now, the different forms of dangers have changed, and the intensity and the severity has changed. One of the biggest things that we're seeing today is online grooming, where someone misrepresents themselves to try and befriend you, to try and sort of make you feel comfortable. And they gain your attention. They want you to become their friend. They say that we have shared interests. But behind that profile, it's a completely different person. And this person is there to abuse the other person. So the kinds of offenses that we're seeing are very different, but also the protection mechanisms have also adapted and have also changed. So there is better reporting, there is better response to this. So again, we need to now tell our kids, how do you respond to a particular cyber crime? Where do you go and report? Again, giving vocabulary to that child, educating that child about their legal rights and their responsibilities. It's also important to know how to be responsible online so that you're not bullying another person.
Thank you, ma'am. Ma'am, just the last but not the least question. What do you think platforms like ESFEs have contributed to the society, and how should the larger education community to contribute to these kind of initiatives?
You know, I love going for education conferences. One, I believe it's a chance for us as educators to meet, which doesn't happen too often. And second, it's a chance for us to hear each other speak on topics that really matter to us and that define us. I'm going to be speaking today about legal literacy, which is a topic so close to my heart. And it's so nice to hear other educators and learn from them. Education is a fraternity where you have to learn from each other, where you become better when you learn from each other, you become a better educator. And I think when we share our best practices with each other, we're not only helping ourselves or our schools that we run, but we're also helping the larger community. We're coming together as hubs of learning, and we're really coming together for the welfare of that child. We talk about reform, we talk about the different changes that our country is seeing. And I think if we put, and obviously, these platforms have the greatest minds of education in India today. So when you put all of them together in a room, it's sure to be fun. And of course, when we see the vendors and we get to meet so many other people who are contributing into this industry, we get to meet new vendors, we get to meet new people doing fantastic things, building, innovating. I think that's how we grow. So I love these conferences, and thank you, guys, for holding this conference and having such amazing people here. Not only the speakers, but your sponsors, your vendors. This is a fabulous job, and I wish you all the best.
Thank you, ma'am. It was a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Mark your calendars. October 6th, 7th and 8th. NESCO, Mumbai, the center of the educational universe. The biggest names are already there. Are you? Secure your spot. Register now at 9892227245 or visit our website.